Want a $2,000 new phone? You'll replace me, my sister's son texted me. At first, I thought it was some kind of sick joke. But that one message was the beginning of a betrayal I never expected from the people I loved most. Stay with me through this story, and if it makes you think or feel something, I'd appreciate it if you could share it, like it, and keep following for more. My name is Aaliyah Benton. I'm 28 years old, and I work as a nurse in Atlanta. My life isn't glamorous, but I've always worked hard for what I have. And because I've always been the dependable one, my family leaned on me more than they should have. Especially my older sister, Tamika. She's 35, married to Javon, and together they have a teenage son named Malik. Ever since we were younger, Tamika was the one who always needed help. Whether it was bills, rent, or just day-to-day expenses. I was the one she called. And because I love my family, I usually said yes, even when it hurt my own savings. Javon never seemed to care much either way, and Malik, well, he grew up spoiled by it all. That's why when I opened my phone and saw that text from Malik, my jaw nearly dropped. He wasn't asking me politely for a favor. He was demanding. Buy me a $2,000 phone, the message read. If you don't, I'll replace you. At first, I laughed nervously, thinking maybe he meant it as some kind of teenager's dark joke. But something about the way it was written, blunt and cold, made my stomach turn. I sat staring at that message for a long time, my hands trembling. Replace me? With who? With what? Did he mean replacing me in their lives, as if I was just a bank card with legs? I wanted to believe Malik was just being immature, but deep down, I knew where this attitude was coming from. It was from Tamika. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Malik was only 16, but he talked like someone who'd been coached into believing I owed him. And knowing my sister, I could almost hear her voice behind his words. Your Aunt Aaliyah is the one who always has money. She should take care of you. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every time I had helped them. The groceries I bought, the late bills I covered, the school clothes I paid for. And still, instead of gratitude, I got this? A threat wrapped in entitlement? I knew then that something inside me had to change. Because if I didn't draw a line now, they were going to keep pushing until I had nothing left. And that single text message was the spark that lit the fire. The next day, I drove over to Tamika's house with my phone still in my hand, the text from Malik sitting at the top of the screen. I didn't even bother with small talk when she opened the door. Tamika, we need to talk about this, I said, holding up the message. She barely glanced at it before rolling her eyes. He's just a kid, Aaliyah. You know how teenagers talk. Don't take it so seriously. Not seriously? I snapped. He demanded a $2,000 phone and threatened to replace me if I didn't buy it. That's not just teenage talk. That's disrespectful, and it's not coming out of nowhere. He's learning this from you. Tamika crossed her arms and leaned against the doorframe. So what if he wants something nice? You can afford it. You're the one with no kids, no extra mouths to feed, just you. Family helps family. Step up like family does. Her words hit me like a slap. I had been stepping up for years, covering her bills, buying Malik's school supplies, paying for things she never thanked me for. And now she was acting like I owed them even more. No, I said firmly. Family doesn't mean I let a 16-year-old blackmail me for a phone. Family doesn't mean you take advantage of me every time you fall short. Malik needs discipline, not another expensive toy handed to him because he throws a tantrum. Tamika's face twisted with anger. You're selfish, Aaliyah. Always acting like you're better than me because you've got a steady job and money in the bank. You're bitter because you don't have kids of your own, and now you're jealous of mine. The words cut deeper than I expected. She knew about my struggles. She knew about the nights I cried because my chances of becoming a mother were slipping away. And she used it like a weapon against me. I felt something inside me shatter, but I refused to let her see me break. I stood there, my voice trembling but strong. You don't get to throw my pain in my face to excuse Malik's behavior. That's low, even for you. I've given and given to this family, and all I get in return is insults and demands. Tamika shrugged, cold as ice. Then stop giving. Nobody asked you to play hero. You brought this on yourself. I looked around the house. The furniture I had helped them buy, the groceries I had stocked their fridge with more times than I could count, the shoes on Malik's feet that I had paid for. Every corner of their life had my fingerprints on it, yet standing there, I realized none of it mattered to them. For the first time, I didn't feel like family. I felt like a wallet they resented but still depended on. And as I walked out of her house that day, I promised myself something had to change. Because if I didn't start protecting my heart and my boundaries, they were going to destroy me. A week passed, and I tried to focus on work, but something kept nagging at me. My account balance didn't look right. I sat down one night after a long shift, logged into my bank app, and my heart dropped. $2,300 were gone. Not just spent, gone in one swoop. I went through the transactions, my fingers shaking. That's when I remembered. Just a few days ago, Tamika had called me, rushing me while I was headed to work. "Sis, can I borrow your card real quick? We're short on groceries, and Malik's been complaining there's nothing to eat. I'll only get a few things, I promise." At the time, I had been too tired to argue. I gave her the card, told her the PIN, and trusted she'd use it responsibly. But now, staring at the receipt from a high-end electronics store, I knew exactly where my money had gone. My chest tightened, anger rising up like fire in my throat. She hadn't just lied, she had stolen. And the worst part was that I already knew what I was about to see with my own eyes. The weekend came, and the family gathered for a cookout at our cousin's place. I told myself I'd wait, that I'd watch first before saying anything. And sure enough, Malik strolled in like he was walking a runway, a brand new iPhone gleaming in his hand. He waved it around, showing it off to the other kids, grinning like he had earned it. "Check this out, y'all," he bragged. "Latest model. Top of the line." My auntie made sure I got what I deserved. My stomach churned. My auntie. That's what he told people, that I had just handed him the money out of love. Everyone clapped and cheered for him, and I stood there frozen, the truth clawing at me. I turned to Javon, who was flipping burgers at the grill. "Did you know about this?" I asked quietly, my voice tight. He barely looked at me, shrugged, and said, "It's just a phone, Aaliyah. Don't make it a big deal. Just a phone." As if $2,300 didn't represent hours of my sweat, my aching feet after 12-hour shifts at the hospital, my sacrifices to keep everyone afloat. I looked at Malik, laughing with his cousins, and then at Tamika, who stood off to the side pretending she didn't see me glaring at her. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just about money. This was about respect I was never going to get from them. Tamika had crossed a line. Borrowing for groceries was one thing. But stealing behind my back, using my money to spoil her son, and then letting him brag about it as if it came from my generosity? That was betrayal in its purest form. In that moment, I knew something inside me had changed forever. The sister I once trusted was gone. All that was left was a thief wearing her face. I caught Malik alone a few days after the cookout, sitting on the porch scrolling through that shiny new phone. I took a deep breath and walked over, trying to stay calm. "Malik, can we talk for a minute?" I asked. He barely glanced up, smirking. "What's up, Auntie? You here to buy me some new AirPods, too?" I clenched my jaw. "No, I'm here to tell you something important. That phone you're holding? It wasn't a gift. That money was stolen from me. Your mom used my card without permission, and it hurt me deeply. You need to understand that things don't just appear out of nowhere. People work hard for them." He laughed, a sharp, mocking sound that made my chest tighten. "Man, you always acting like a victim. Mom was right. You'll never have a real family of your own, so you try to act like you're the boss of ours. But newsflash, you're not." The words cut through me like glass. For a second, I couldn't even breathe. He didn't just come up with that on his own. That was Tamika's voice spilling out of his mouth. She had told him my deepest pain, the one thing I never shared with anyone outside of her, the sister I once trusted. My hands trembled as I tried to hold myself together. I thought about all the nights I had cried alone after doctor appointments, all the times I had put on a smile while my heart broke inside. Infertility wasn't something I asked for, and it wasn't something I wanted thrown in my face by a 16-year-old boy repeating his mother's cruelty. I looked him straight in the eye. "You don't know what you're talking about, Malik. But one day, you will understand that words like that can destroy people. And you'll wish you had treated me differently." He just shrugged, tapping on his phone again, dismissing me as if I were nothing. That was the moment the rage inside me finally boiled over. I had been quiet for too long. I had carried their burdens, let their insults slide, and swallowed my own pain so they could live easier. But now the line had been crossed too far. I walked away from that porch with tears burning my eyes, but those tears weren't from weakness anymore. They were from fire. I was done being their safety net. I was done letting Tamika use me, and then spit venom about the one thing that hurt me most. For years, I thought silence was love. I thought sacrificing for family was the right thing to do. But now I understood. Silence was the rope they used to choke me with. And if I didn't cut it, I'd lose myself completely. That day, I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't stay quiet anymore. They wanted to see me as weak, as bitter, as less than. But they were about to see exactly how strong I could be when pushed to my breaking point. I stopped sending money to Tamika's house cold turkey. No explanations, no excuses, just silence. For the first time in years, I kept my paycheck for myself. At first, it felt strange, almost wrong, like I was breaking some unspoken family rule. But as the days passed, the guilt turned into relief. I wasn't their bank anymore. I started saving aggressively, setting aside every extra dollar. I skipped small luxuries, brewed coffee at home, picked up extra shifts. Each deposit into my account felt like a brick laid in the foundation of a new life, one where I wasn't weighed down by Tamika's endless demands. But I didn't stop at saving. I knew this wasn't just about money, it was about truth. I went back through my texts, screenshots, and bank statements. I documented everything. The missing $2,300, Malik's message demanding the phone, the receipts from the electronics store. Piece by piece, I built a record of every betrayal they had swept under the rug. One night, I spread everything out on my dining table. Looking at the pile of evidence, I felt both sick and powerful. Sick because this was my sister, my own blood, doing this to me. Powerful because, for once, I held the leverage. That's when my best friend, Renee Collins, stopped by. Renee had been my rock for years, the one person who always told me the truth, even when I didn't want to hear it. She glanced at the table, raised her eyebrows, and said, "Finally." I frowned. "Finally what?" "Finally, you're standing up for yourself," she said, pulling out a chair. "I've watched you bend over backward for Tamika and her family, and what do you get in return? Insults and empty pockets. It's about time you take your power back." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "It feels wrong, though. She's still my sister." Renee leaned forward, her voice steady. "Blood doesn't give someone the right to abuse you, Aaliyah. She crossed the line when she stole from you, and when she used your infertility against you. That's not love, that's cruelty. And the only way to deal with people like that is to expose the truth. Let everyone see who she really is." Her words hit me hard, because deep down I knew she was right. Tamika had built this image of being the struggling mother, the one who sacrificed everything for her child. But behind that mask was manipulation, entitlement, and lies. That night, I made my decision. I wasn't going to scream or fight or stoop to her level. My revenge would be simple and clean. The truth. Once the truth was out, she wouldn't be able to twist it anymore. I sat back, staring at the stack of proof in front of me, and for the first time in a long time, I smiled. My silence had protected her for years. Now, it was going to destroy her. The first month without my support felt quiet at first, like a gap that would fill itself. Then the small things started to show. A red notice slipped under Tamika's door one morning. Late electricity payment. A sticker on the fridge reminded them the water bill was overdue. Little reminders turned into calls I could hear her answering with a shaky voice. "We'll get it by next week, we'll get it." Javon started taking longer shifts. He came home smelling of grease and fatigue, his hands rougher, his smile forced. He tried to be brave, but anger leaked out in the wrong places. One night I overheard him through the thin walls, shouting at Tamika about missed rent and the bank threatening garnishment. Tamika cried and begged, but Javon only slammed a door and left, footsteps heavy down the hallway. Still, Malik acted like nothing had changed. He strutted around the block with that new phone, recording himself and posting videos like he was already a star. He ignored the unpaid bills piling up in the kitchen, ignored the landlord's hints when he stopped by to ask for rent. It felt surreal. How could a boy flaunt luxury when the lights in his house blinked uncertainly at night? Neighbors started to whisper. "I heard they're behind on rent," someone said at the corner store. "Tamika always borrowed from Aaliyah," another replied. Rumors spread faster than explanations. My name came up in hushed tones. Some people thought I had cut them off for no reason. Others wondered what really happened. Tamika called me once, voice thin and ashamed. "Please, Aaliyah, the landlord's on my back. We need something this month, just to get us through." Her words were soft, but there was a steel edge that hadn't been there before. I listened, breathing slowly. I could hear Malik laughing in the background, the phone's ringer chiming with endless group chats and games. "You put your family first," she pleaded. "We've always been there for each other." I didn't hang up. I didn't yell. I said simply, "I can't keep doing this, Tamika." "You know why?" She lashed out instead, calling me cold-hearted, a word meant to sting. "You don't care if we lose everything," she cried. "You're doing this to hurt me." Her accusation landed like a stone, but I had built a wall for a reason. I had watched them take, and then twist it against me as if my kindness was weakness. I could have exploded, told her everything I'd found, all the receipts and screenshots, but anger would only make me like them. So I kept my voice even. "I'm protecting myself," I said. "I can't be your safety net anymore." Days turned into weeks. The heating was turned down. The car stayed in the driveway with a tax sticker overdue. Malik pawned an older gaming console for cash one night, a glance of shame flashing across his face before he covered it with a joke. Family gatherings grew tense. Relatives who once smiled at me now looked away or asked awkward questions. I watched it all from a distance, texts left unread, messages unanswered, and felt a complicated mix of guilt and relief. My savings grew a little each week, and with each deposit I felt lighter. I wasn't celebrating their pain. I was letting consequences meet choices. They had to learn that help without respect would only teach them to take. In the silence that followed, their problems multiplied like cracks spreading through glass. I stayed calm, steady, waiting for the day they would either apologize or finally change. Until then, I let their life unravel on its own terms. The family reunion was supposed to be a day of laughter, food, and old memories. The backyard was filled with cousins setting up chairs, kids running around with balloons, and uncles tending to the grill. I arrived quietly, determined to keep my peace, even though I knew tension was brewing. I hadn't spoken much to Tamika or Javon in weeks, and I could feel their eyes on me the moment I walked in. It didn't take long for the storm to come. In front of everyone, while plates of food were being passed around, Tamika raised her voice. "You really think you're better than everybody, don't you, Aaliyah? Acting like you're some saint just because you've got a paycheck. Truth is, you're stingy. You've always been stingy. And jealous too, jealous of my family, jealous of my life." The words cut through the chatter, silencing the table. I felt every pair of eyes shift toward me. My heart raced, but I stayed calm. I had been waiting for this moment. I stood slowly, pulling out a folder I had tucked in my bag. My voice was steady as I said, "If you want to talk about the truth, let's talk about it." I laid the papers on the table one by one. My bank statements showing the $2,300 withdrawal, the receipt from the electronics store, Malik's text message demanding a $2,000 phone. "This," I said, pointing to the evidence, "isn't jealousy. This is betrayal." Gasps rippled through the relatives gathered around. A couple of aunts leaned in to read, shaking their heads in disbelief. One uncle muttered, "Lord have mercy," under his breath. Javon shifted uncomfortably, looking at the ground. Tamika's face went red, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't find the words. She tried to laugh it off, waving a hand. "That's just a misunderstanding. Family handles things in private." But I didn't let her twist it. "Private?" I repeated. "You had no problem stealing from me in private. You had no problem telling Malik lies about me in private. But now the truth is out in the open, where it belongs." Malik, standing beside his mother, tried to jump in. "It's not even like that, Auntie." I turned sharply to him, holding up the screenshot of his own words. "Do you want to explain this message you sent me? Or should I read it out loud so everyone can hear?" He froze, the smirk sliding off his face. For once, he had nothing to say. The silence that followed was heavy. Relatives looked at Tamika and Javon not with sympathy, but with disappointment and anger. One cousin shook her head and said, "You used your own sister like that? Shameful," another added. "And to drag her name through the mud after everything she's done for you, unbelievable." Tamika tried to argue, but her voice cracked under the weight of everyone's judgment. Javon didn't even try. He just kept staring at the ground, ashamed. For the first time, I didn't feel small in front of my family. I felt strong. The lies they had spun for years unraveled in seconds, and everyone finally saw the truth. That day, the family turned its back on Tamika, not because I demanded it, but because the truth was undeniable. And for once, I walked away with my head held high, knowing I had nothing left to hide. The silence in Aaliyah's apartment felt different these days, lighter, freer. She no longer had to dread another phone call from Tamika asking for a little help or Malik demanding something expensive. Instead, she was stacking her savings, watching her independence grow while the weight of manipulation slid off her shoulders. But out in Tamika's world, cracks were spreading faster than anyone expected. It started with late fees. Their landlord, Mr. Franklin, had already knocked twice in 1 week, his patience thin. Tamika and Javon had always managed to scrape by, patching holes with the money Aaliyah funneled in. Without it, the holes widened into gaping wounds. "You told me your sister would cover the rent," Javon snapped one evening, pacing their cramped living room. His shirt clung with sweat, frustration boiling over. "She will," Tamika shot back, though her voice lacked conviction. "She's just being dramatic. She'll come around." But the following week, another notice slid under their door. "Final warning." Javon cursed under his breath, slamming the paper onto the table. "You better fix this, Tamika, or we're out." Meanwhile, Malik strutted around as if nothing was wrong. His new iPhone gleamed in his hands, and he didn't hesitate to flash it at friends and family. At the barbershop, he boasted about having people who take care of him, a jab that made Aaliyah's blood boil when word got back to her. But arrogance couldn't pay bills. By the end of the month, Malik's prized phone had become their lifeline. Tamika dragged him to a pawn shop on a rainy afternoon, her face tight with shame. "You serious, Mom? You want me to give this up?" Malik protested, clutching the device like it was a limb. "You want to eat or not?" she snapped, yanking it from his hand and slapping it on the counter. The clerk counted out the bills, far less than the phone was worth, and Malik's eyes burned with fury as he shoved the cash into his mother's hand. Word of their downfall spread quickly, as gossip always did. Cousins whispered at church. Aunt Denise shook her head in disappointment. "That girl Tamika's been using Aaliyah for years. Now look at her. Can't even pay her rent." At the next Sunday dinner, relatives avoided sitting near Tamika. When she reached for a slice of pie, Uncle Ray muttered, "Best believe she ain't paying for it." The laughter that followed cut her deeper than she let on. Aaliyah sat quietly at the table, a faint smile tugging at her lips. She didn't gloat aloud, but inside, there was a sense of justice. For years, she had been the safety net, the quiet provider, the one expected to carry everyone else's weight. Now they were learning to stand or stumble on their own. For the first time in years, Aaliyah felt light. She wasn't just free from their financial drain, she was free from their control. And she vowed never to hand them that power again. The keys felt heavy in Aaliyah's palm, not because of their weight, but because of what they represented. For the first time in her life, she stood on the front porch of a house that was hers, no strings attached, no whispered debts, no manipulative family obligations. The fresh white paint gleamed in the morning sun, and the little blue shutters reminded her of the homes she used to admire as a girl. "Girl, you did it," Renee said, grinning as she carried in a box labeled kitchen. No freeloaders, no drama. Just peace. Inside, the house smelled of new wood and fresh paint. Aaliyah had chosen every detail with care, determined to build something for herself, not for others to drain. The living room walls were a soft sage green, the kind of calming color she'd never dared to paint when her life was filled with chaos. She and Renee unwrapped curtains, laughing as they tried to hang them crooked, then straight. "This feels like a new chapter," Aaliyah said, sinking onto the couch with a sigh. "It's not just a chapter," Renee replied, handing her a glass of sparkling cider. "It's your book now. You finally took the pen back." Later that week, word spread through the family like wildfire. Aaliyah's name came up in hushed conversations at church and grocery aisles. Relatives who had once silently watched Tamika manipulate now came forward, one by one, offering thanks. "Aaliyah, I owe you," Cousin Jordan admitted at a family gathering. "Tamika got me to lend her $2,000 last year. I never saw a dime back. She hit me for $300, Aunt Denise confessed, shaking her head. Said it was for Malik's school books. Next week he was showing off new sneakers. Each story lit a fire in Aaliyah's chest, but instead of anger, it was vindication. She wasn't crazy. She hadn't been overreacting. The truth was finally clear. Tamika's web of manipulation had stretched far beyond her, and Aaliyah had been the one to cut the thread. That evening, as she stood in her own kitchen stirring a pot of Renee's famous gumbo, Aaliyah felt something she hadn't felt in years: pride. Not the kind others forced on her when she paid bills or fixed problems, but the kind that came from standing her ground. Renee tapped the spoon against the pot and smiled. "See, you didn't need them. What you needed was you." Aaliyah nodded, her voice steady. "For so long, I thought love meant sacrifice. That if I wasn't giving, I wasn't enough. But boundaries, that's love too. Love for myself." The hum of her fridge, the bubbling gumbo, the laughter of her best friend. All of it wove together into a moment she would never forget. She had built a life that no one could take from her. And for once, she wasn't living under the shadow of guilt. She was living in her own light. The knock came on a rainy Sunday evening, soft at first, then urgent. Aaliyah opened the door and froze. There stood Tamika, her hair unkempt, clothes wrinkled, eyes swollen from crying. The confident, sharp-tongued sister she once knew had been stripped down to desperation. "Aaliyah, please," Tamika whispered, clutching her purse like it was her last possession. "Javon's gone. He left me with nothing. I don't know what to do." For a long moment, Aaliyah just looked at her. Memories rushed back, Malik waving that shiny phone at the cookout, Tamika defending him while calling her selfish, the stolen money, the cruel words about her not being able to have a family. It all sat like a stone in her chest. "Why are you here, Tamika?" Aaliyah asked quietly. "Because you're my sister," Tamika choked out, tears spilling down her face. "I know I messed up, but I've got nowhere else to turn. Please just help me this once. For family." The irony hit hard. Family, that word had been twisted, weaponized, and used against Aaliyah for years. She thought of all the times she had sacrificed, the times she went without so they could have. She thought of Malik mocking her, repeating words that had cut her deeper than any blade. Aaliyah's voice was steady when she finally answered. "You replaced me the day you stole from me. You chose money, lies, and entitlement over me. And now, I'm replacing the guilt you put on me with peace." Tamika's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her face shifted from shock to shame, then to anger, and back to pleading. But Aaliyah didn't waver. "You made your choices," she continued. "And I've made mine. I won't let you back in just because life caught up to you." With that, Aaliyah slowly closed the door. The sound of the latch clicking echoed through the quiet house. Outside, the rain kept falling, muffling whatever Tamika might have said next. Aaliyah stood there for a moment, her hand resting on the doorknob, her chest rising and falling with calm breaths. There was no rush of revenge, no bitterness left, only relief. She turned back toward her living room, where the soft glow of a lamp lit up her new home. The couch, the curtains, the little stack of books she'd been meaning to read. It was all hers. She walked to the window and glanced outside. Tamika was gone, swallowed by the rain. For the first time in years, Aaliyah felt no weight on her shoulders. She smiled faintly, whispering to herself, finally free. The final image was clear. Aaliyah standing tall in her own home, no longer the family's scapegoat or savior, but a woman who had chosen herself. And in that choice, she had won everything that truly mattered. Do you believe Aaliyah made the right choice by closing the door on her sister, or should she have given her another chance? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd really like to hear your perspective. And if you enjoy stories like this one, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss what's coming next.